Hi, I'm Joshua Burns, and this is your invitation to speak. Welcome to Speak. I'm your host, Joshua Burns, and today I have a guest, colleague of mine, Mr. Eric Jenkins, who hosts the Community Unplugged. Mr. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate you inviting me.
Mr. Eric,
Yes.
with all the things that's going on in today's society and the world, how are you holding up?
I'm doing pretty good. I woke up on this side of life, and I have an uncle of mine that says as long as I'm walking on the dirt and the dirt is not on top of me, I'm doing pretty good. So I'm telling you, there's so many precious souls that can't say the same. So every day that I wake up, it's a beautiful day. So I have no complaints.
Yes, sir, that's a blessing. Okay, the first question I have for you is about divisive racism. How do we engage each other?
I think you said it right there when you described it, when you said divisive racism, because racism can be used as a divisive term, a means of divisiveness, as well as a person's economic standing, as well as a person's educational standing. All these things can be used to put a person in a subgroup and divide that person from another group of people that are in a different group. And so we can look at all these subgroups and put each other in these groups and divide ourselves further from one another, or we can just accept the fact that we are diverse. And that's what this nation is basically based upon, is a melting pot of diversity.
But the acceptance part is the part that we're having an issue with. People accepting, or the failure to accept, that we are diverse, we are different, but we are all one and the same.
I think that's the point, is people are failing to realize the fact that diversity is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be different from someone. It's a good thing. I love diversity. I love diversities in food. That's why people go to buffets, because they like to have different choices. They like to have diversities. They go shopping and they want different colors and they want different fabrics. And isn't it great to be able to live in a society here in America where we are in this melting pot of all these different diverse groups of nationalities, ethnicities, languages, cultures. I believe it's a beautiful thing, and we have to make that choice. We can look at it as something negative, or we can look at it as something positive, but it's up to the individual to make that choice.
And that's a good point. Now let's speak about the human brutality part of it. Let's say other ethnicities versus others.
Well, we see that in, let's say, Chicago, for instance, in a lot of the areas where you have a lot of gang warfare, where you have the same ethnicities that are really killing each other at a large number. So the so-called black on black, you have melanated people who are killing each other. And it's not that there's a different ethnic group that is involved, but they're actually killing one another. And this is based on color symbols. Again, this is the diversity. I can divide myself by red, or I can divide myself by blue. I can say that I am a Crip, or I can say that I am a Blood. And because of that, this creates this divide, and then we make the choice. We can embrace each other and know that we just have diversities. I can tell you that we've had people that are members of biker gangs that can come together at certain events based on the fact that they're bikers first. We're humans first. And then we might be subcategorized as maybe a Blood or a Crip, but then we have to make that decision whether we're going to kill each other and continue to do so based on that sort of tribalism.
But even with that, we need more communication. Don't you think? More communication with each other, especially with the youth the generational gap that we have between others, and getting our point across to them, stressing about life, what it means to live a long, prosperous life instead of us killing each other
Yes.
because of a set that we're from or the color of our skin.
I agree with you. I can teach my child to hate an individual based on their ethnicity, based on the color of their skin, or I can teach them that diversity is something that is just a part of life, and that a person may be different from you and look different from you, speak differently than you do, but all in all, we're the same humans, we're the same family.
Yes, and that's a good response to that.
Yeah.
We are all humans. We're all of the same family. We originated from the beginning as one. So, a question for you is, or in regards to the troops in Portland, Oregon, being deployed over to Portland and handling that situation. How do you feel about that?
That is a very, very toxic subject, because you have a situation where you have what is considered by the media peaceful protesting. There are infiltrators that are anarchists and have other means or other ideas about the protest. But states have rights, and the governors and the mayors are saying, hey, we don't want these troops here. The federal government is saying we're going to send them anyway because the president says that we have to we have to protect our citizens. And then there are people that are saying these are militarized agents, and there are others that are saying no, these are civilians. So it's that whole divide between, are these civilians that are going out, the National Guard, or are they actually militarized troops?
Well, how do we break that divide in order to get our point across in a way that it would be prosperous for the country as far as our racial relations?
I think if we were to look at it in a sense let's look at what does the Constitution say about it? And if it's a legal thing, it's legal. If it's not, it's not, and leave it up to the states to make that decision.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. That is time for a commercial break. We'll
Okay.
be back after a brief break.
All right.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. We're the family. I thought you were on my team. Wait.
What do you wish for? A nice life? Nice things? Or do you wish for something more? A sense of purpose? Do you wish to discover a cure? To write code that cracks an unsolvable question? To further our exploration into space? Or to invent something that changes everything right here on Earth? Well, if that's your wish, make yourself ready. Because when you look back, you'll see that you didn't just make wishes, you realized them.
Hey, welcome back, Mr. Eric.
Yes.
So with the way things are going now, we're seeing they've been in protest mode for the past 2 months. It's been over 60 days, I want to say.
Yes.
what would bring light to what's actually going on with the movement of us, as in black people, mattering to the general public?
I can say that from experience, when I protested back in the day, it was more of bringing to view the problem, but unfortunately, we were not bringing solutions to the problems. We were very good at saying what was wrong, but we didn't have anything involved to correct it. I mean, do you agree with that? That's the same.
I definitely agree. There are no solutions being brought up. Then the solutions that are being brought up are being shot down, or they are not being emphasized in the manner that they should be emphasized. I think solutions are always better for any problem that's going on, because you cannot just tackle a problem with other problems. You have to have a solution involved within that to get your point across to whoever you're trying to get it across to, and then start making more movement on that solution to get a better outcome of the situation.
I agree. I think that was one of the failures, if I could say so, during my generation as a political activist and a protester, is the fact that we were very good at doing one, and that's bringing attention to the problem. But we never seemed to sit back and offer a solution to the problem, and I believe that's where our failure was.
So I have a question for you then. So what will be the problem, the big problem in this protesting? What caused the protest? And what seems to be the continuance of the problem that's going on today?
There are a lot of people. I mean, we could go into things about, this pandemic has had a lot of people stir crazy, and it has to do with the economic collapse. It has to do with the pandemic. All of these things are a factor. It has to do with the loss of jobs. It has to do with economic, collapsing going on before us. And people are just reacting toward that. But we can look at it and say also that there are systemic things that have been wrong with this country from the beginning, and we do have to address those things. We can't just cover it up. If we don't address it, it's always going to be there.
It is, and I agree with that. And more so than just the systemic stuff that is there as far as the racism, there's been blatant racism out there. It has never been avoided. It's more subtle now, I would say, but the racism itself has always been there. From your day-to-day life, walking life, if you notice and pay attention, I will say, I hear people say that there isn't racism doesn't exist. You really have to pay attention to certain things that people say, certain actions they make towards you, because all of that can go into the lines of racism. People are smart. We as human beings are very smart. The way we word our words, our wording, the way we place certain things, we have a different avenue of getting racism across now to where others will not notice. But if you pay attention to the wording of things and the demeanor that people have and what they project across as you're not going to catch on to it, shows that racism still exists, and it has been there.
Yes, and then again, you have so many people that are here today that are of one ethnic group that had nothing to do with systemic racism. And unfortunately, they feel that based on their pigmentation, because they are Anglo, that they are somehow to blame for this systemic racism. I think if you were to explain what it is, and it's not being explained in our school systems at all, if you understand what it's about and who are the people that implemented it, the small percentage of people, and that it is not a target against people that are today that have nothing to do with this system being implemented. They may reap some rewards because of it, but they're not the ones that implemented the system, and it's not a hatred toward everybody who is an Anglo.
And I definitely agree with that. It's not a hatred towards them. It's not a hatred towards people in general.
Right.
You know, it's a small group that has a lot of hatred towards them and towards different individuals. But a lot of this has been seen with the flag issue also.
Yes.
This issue was to shed light to social unrest, social injustice, and they turned it into an issue with the flag. That is another thing that bothers me, how you always try to defer the problem onto something else. So the bigger issue, we're not trying to resolve. We passed on that as a country. So now it's coming back twofold now.
Well, we don't want to drown out, cover up history, because history is so important, as we know that if we're ignorant of history, we're going to be damned to repeat it. But when it comes to let's say the flag, I'm going to use the flag as an example. The Confederate flag. The Confederate flag, to one, may represent the South. And this is like a football game. It's my team versus the other team, South versus North. And that's all it means whatsoever. But this same flag has been associated with the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacist organizations, and then they're going to equate that flag with that particular ideology. So you have the school where we can't lump everybody in one group and say, you're a racist if you love that Confederate flag, because there's people who of different ethnicities that love that flag for different reasons.
And quick thing, yes, well, we're also putting the necessary image of a flag over human beings and human life. At this moment,
Okay.
we'll take time for a break, and we'll be back in a minute to speak.
All right.
Continue discrimination against black people.
Us white people, we have to erase it. And the first step is to own up and face it. In America, fighting for equal treatment
Is not a black thing.
That because Beyonce is on your playlist and you voted for Obama
doesn't mean that our generation
has seen the end of racist drama.
Racism is not one of those things.
So go away.
we all have to do our part.
Get a shirt. $5 from each shirt goes directly to charities working in communities to fight racism. Band together against racism.
Racism is not over, but I'm over racism.
You understand in life that there will be hardships, no matter who you are, no matter how talented you are, how beautiful you are. Everything that you struggle in is there to create progress.
Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can.
The only person that can define you is you.
And if you stay the course and put your mind and your heart into something, you literally, truly can do anything you want.
Don't stop at high school.
Go further.
Let everyone know you want a better future.
Better life.
And they better make room.
Welcome back to Speak. All right, Mr. Eric, let's talk about more of this divisiveness leading into all the protests that has been 60 days and counting. Let's talk about some of the deaths that have gone on with the black community by the hands of police officers, and not just officers, but just the deaths that are unjustly, without, if you want to say criminals, because I know a lot of people saying these aren't good people, but they are human beings. They are people that deserve their time in court.
That subject is a very complicated subject, because police officers, it's necessary. Some people will look at the history of it and say, okay, they were, that whole thing started with them rounding up slaves, and that was the history of the police officers, and that's how they came into being. And they still have some of that ideology, but there are very good police officers. I can vouch for that, and there are some that are bad. And I think the ones that are bad need to be dealt with, but we don't need to demonize the whole system based on a few rotten apples.
And excuse, don't mean to interrupt you, but that is one thing we shouldn't do. We shouldn't demonize the whole police force, the whole law enforcement. I have a good relationship with police officers. Some are very good friends of mine. So no, I would not demonize an entire department.
No.
That I would not do because of some individuals. But I do think there is a lack of teaching, a lack of instruction when it comes to the law enforcement community as far as how they should deal with certain things. And that is being seen in today's society. And also, on that same note, we need to take responsibility as humans and individuals as well, not to provoke certain things, certain issues. The issue, everyone wants to pull out their camera and record something and be the next person to blow something up. And
Yes.
that, I think, is also a problem, because you want to be the first person to get all these views,
Right.
Because of social media. So how is that impacting?
I mean, unfortunately, it could be one-sided. I mean, you're showing the bad of police officers. Do you show police officers on the street putting themselves in harm's way, blocking the traffic, going 70, 80, 90 miles an hour so that this person that's changing their flat tire doesn't get injured? I see that all the time. That's the majority of things that I see are officers being very helpful, officers teaching people, teaching kids, engaging with the community. But those things the media don't cover because they're not sensationalism. And yes, I am knocking the media. That's because of the fact that they do have an opportunity to show a more positive side. And then my question would be, what is the end game? What is the end game of demonizing the police officers and getting rid of the police officers? I'm not justifying any of the bad apples that got in there. I know there are some people that are evil in the police department, in every department, in every aspect of life. You're going to have evil people doing evil things, but I believe those people need to be dealt with, and the whole organization doesn't need to be demonized based on those rotten apples. Seriously, those rotten apples need to be taken out of the barrel.
Now, do you feel like we have a lot of individuals that just do not look forward to good race relations, even in law enforcement or some type of empowerment like that?
Unfortunately, I do know that there are people that were from certain clans, organizations, that writings have been found that they pretty much said that they were going to infiltrate the police department, the military, the educational system, occupation. So you're going to have people that have that radical ideology and that hatred that have infiltrated all sorts of organizations, from political organizations, you name it, even in academia and also religious organizations. And so that's what I say, we have to find out those that are in those organizations with that particular agenda, and those need to be taken out instead of destroying the whole system.
Well, how do we go about separating those individuals? First of all, it's hard for anyone to admit that this individual has a preconceived notion about a certain race. They have a hatred towards a certain race when they have hired this individual or they have put this individual in power. So how do we go about weeding those individuals out so we can get a better law enforcement or a better society, as far as we have people that we can trust dealing with different ethnicities?
And I think each organization has to have people that are educated. You have people that are psychologists, people that are psychiatrists in certain cases, if there is a mental disorder involved. But there are people that can actually teach about the communication, about human reactions, and all these things can be taught. And so a lot of things, when it comes to people who have psychiatric problems that are released on the streets, police officers are not trained for that. They're not trained for a lot of the situations that they find themselves in. And we call the police to neutralize and to deal with all sorts of things that they have never been trained for and were never put together, organized to do.
Now, I do know they get certain levels of training, but the level of training and how it is in all actuality is not the same. So it's dealing with that actual instance versus what you would do practical and what you have been taught. So that's where we need to get officers enlightened with that and getting them better equipped with dealing with certain instances, so where they won't feel so overwhelmed and they feel neglected.
I agree. I mean, if it's law enforcement, let the law enforcement officers take care of it. If it's a social issue, let a social worker take care of it. If it's a academic issue, let a person help them with their economic situation. If it's a medical issue, let a medical person help them with their medical situation. That's why we have paramedics. That's why we have the fire department. Let the police department be peace officers. And that's one thing I would like to see. I would like to see police officers be called peace officers, as they used to be called, and that way they know exactly what their goal is, to restore peace in the community.
At this moment, we'll take time for a break, and we'll be back in a minute to speak.
Why would you bully me?
Why would you bully me?
Why would you bully me?
Because it makes you feel cool? Because I'm different?
Do I touch a nerve?
Does making me feel bad make you feel good?
Why?
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 Bullying hurts. Bullying abuses. Bullying kills. Why would you bully me?
The first thing you learn when you're coming back from injury is to be smart about coming back safely. My advice is to concentrate one step at a time. And remember, you can only control your own performance. So everyone around you has to do their job. Trust your team, and they won't let you down. Because it's up to each and every one of us to make progress. So stick with it. In Dallas, we will come back.
And welcome back to Speak. So you were speaking right before winter break, so I want you to go ahead and finish up.
Again, we tend to put too much on the police officers. And you have a lot of police officers that are quitting their jobs because they just cannot deal with the pressure. This is what I would say. As a community, we have a choice. See yourself in a community without police officers. And then see yourself in a community with police officers. In today's environment, would you rather have police officers there to help protect you and your family, or would you rather them be eradicated completely and try to defend for yourself?
But what about when those officers aren't protecting you?
Again, one thing we learned is that there is the law. You'll hear a lot about the law of the land. The law of the land is the Constitution. And I don't care what other law has been in place, if it violates the Bill of Rights and it violates the Constitution, then that law is not really in effect. It doesn't trump the Constitution being the highest law of the land. And so what we have to look at is all these police procedures that they've trained to do that are hurting people, killing innocent people. Is this necessary? Is this a violation of human rights? And if it is, then it needs to be changed. So there are things that need to be changed in policing. I definitely agree, because as a citizen, I don't want to be murdered in my own home because they have the wrong address and they think that I'm some drug dealer, or because I've been profiled because of the color of my skin, or that I look like somebody. And there's so many things. But yeah, they do need to be. We need to address that at a local level, state level, and a federal level.
All right, thank you for your time, and that has concluded our segment of Speak.
I can tell by the way that you look that you're feeling my style. And I've been watching you so long, I got pictures in the back of my mind. Oh yeah. The way you walk, I'm convinced you got something that I can't deny. And you ain't gotta say nothing, I can tell by the look in your eye. So